let's tie a modified Cowboy Leech. Modified in that we use 2 zonker strips off to the side. The Leech pattern actually looks like a crawdad or teenager or baby crawdad. And it is probably one of my most productive patterns. I always have one of these on. It'll always be my lead fly. We're using a Tiemco 3761 in a size 10. The also has a bead 764 tungsten, brass colored. The thread I have here is 8/0 uni in olive. I'm going to start the thread in behind the bead and bring it back to the bend of the hook. I create a little bump there. It helps keep my zonker strips, pine squirrel strips up. Now brought the thread right back behind the bead again. I add a little drop of super glue. It helps me keep my pine squirrel in place. Now the pine squirrel is olive, and it is just off of a hide that's been zonked. And the length of the pine squirrel is 5/8 of an inch. And I'm putting 2 pieces on one side of the hook and one on the other. And I think it looks like the end of it looks like the claws on a crawdad. Tie it off. Now I'm going to take a little bit of hand sanitizer, actually gelled alcohol, and I'm going to use it to keep the hair out of the way. I like the sanitizer because it keeps it wet for me to do all my tying, and then it dries rather quickly. It really evaporates really quickly. So I'm taking my pine squirrel and pushing it up to the front. I'm going to tie my thread back in. That's that same 8/0 uni olive, tied back at the hump. I'm going to part the hair with my bodkin so I get right down to the hide and tie it into the hook at the bend. And I'll do that to both sides, meaning to both strips of pine squirrel. I've done it to one side, push it out of the way, I do it the other side. I'm going to take my extra large pair of whip finisher and I'm going to whip finish that back end. You need that long reach on those large whip finisher. Now take a little bit more and take the rest of the hair and preen it upwards. And then it makes it easier for me to split it in half, and that's my part so that I can put another whip finish right there in the middle of it. And I try to keep the thread underneath on the bottom of the hook. After I've whip finished it, I'll push the rest of the hair back, and then I'll bring it up to behind the bead of the hook. Now I'm going to take a little bit of flasher brew, 2 strips actually, in copper, tie it in behind the bead, and bring it, the length of it is actually the length of the hide of the pine squirrel. And I'll do that to both sides. Just a touch of flash. Trim it off. Now I've got two tiny bits of zonker strips in crawdad orange and olive. And I'm talking maybe 3/8 to 1/2 inch long. And I'm capturing it in my pettigene tool. I trim off the hide, and I'm going to create a loop. And this is going to be my collar on my Leech pattern. Now I like it to overlap a little bit. I like that little bit of rust in there, two colors, and combed through. And so it gives some color to my pine squirrel. I'll actually pick pine squirrel that's got reddish tips to it. That's my favorite. I'm going to create my dubbing loop. Take my pettigene clip with the hair off of those squirrel strips. I notice I like the rust, or the crawdad orange up at the front, closer to the hook. And then I like to have all at the back end, and then I'll spin it to mesh it together. I'm making just an adjustment. I don't like too much. It really bulks up at the thread position if you don't push it way out. Now I'm just spinning it to create that dubbing loop. Now you don't need a lot. You can see it's going to go all the way around once, at least once, maybe 2 times, to form that collar. But I get that olive rust colors, which I think those crawdads look like, especially when they get a little older. And it's a nice contrast to whatever the vegetation. I want to lock that brush in place, so I really nail it down pretty good. You can whip out a lot of these at a time. It takes me about 5 minutes when I'm on a roll in a production mode to tie one. So about a dozen in an hour easily. And you'll go through them a lot. Now I'm just combing through just to combine the two colors, the olive and the crawdad orange. And I'll trim a little hair right underneath just so that it gives the hook a clean path. And that's my modified cowboy leech.